Firstly, I would like to recite one shloka, which is Nagarjuna's word. So certainly in Tibetan, salutation to Buddha. Kange tuze ni so ne dawa do je ba be je re dan be che ne de je be ko dam de la cha che lo. Now, my long-time friend Murudara, since some time back, asked me in Delhi. Now there are people who really showing interest about Buddha Dharma. So whether possibility were to arrange one meeting and discuss about Buddha Dharma. Then I told him, as if there are people who are really eager to discuss or to listen, then I'm always available, always ready. So long this body work, I'm always ready to help anyone. So that particularly here in India, in this country, as Rajiv mentioned, Buddha come from India. Now today, some say Buddha not Indian, but a Nepalese. So it doesn't matter. They say Buddha enlightened in Buddha Gaya and give his teaching in this country. Then perhaps more important, like Nagarjuna, Arya Sangha, Arya Deva, Bosubant, Digna, Bhaviveka, Buddha Pandita, Chandakirti, Dharmakirti, Gunabhava, all these great Buddhist scholars, like a pillar of Buddha Dharma, all come from India, all Indian. So that's why we Tibetan, more than 1,000 years, we always look this country as the most holy place and our Guru's place. So usually I describe our Indian brothers and sisters is actually our Guru. So a bit emotion, instead of salutation from your side to me, I must salute. You are the generations of all these great masters of the lineage. So I think in 70s, one time I gave some teaching, or actually Buddhisamanza initiation, Abhisheka, to some Sanskrit scholar from Varanasi. I think 5 of them, which came Dharamsala, and I gave one teaching of Buddhisamanza Abhisheka, and at that time I expressed my salutation to them. I have the feeling, treasure of this country, we Tibetan kept more than 1,000 years, now eventually now returning to you. And that's our feeling. And Buddha Dharma, of course, I'm Buddhist. So I may have a little prejudiced way. May have. But I feel Buddha Dharma is not only one of the ancient religion, but also, I think, very relevant to today's world. Mainly, I feel, I think two factors, I feel. Not talking about the next life, or not talking nirvana, or Buddhahood, but these are 2 points. That is the main message of Buddha is compassion. Of course, all major religious tradition also they have the same message of love, compassion. But then Buddha's the concept of compassion is not only towards humanity, human being, but also the entire sentient being. The Buddha very much emphasizes the all sentient beings have sort of equal right to overcome suffering, to achieve happiness. Because of that message, usually the people got the impression Buddha's message is non-violence, ahimsa. That's India's tradition, India's treasure. I think even before Buddha, the ahimsa concept already there, I think. So Buddha maybe add some more philosophical other reasons to further promotion of ahimsa. So, message of peace, message of non-violence is very relevant to today's world. And then another unique Buddhist concept or Buddhist message, that is Patitsamuppāda. Patitsamuppāda, interdependency or interconnectedness. I think that theory is, best sort of the concept to see the reality. The reality, everything interdependent, interconnected. That's the reality. So I think with the concept of, from the viewpoint of concept of Patitsamuppāda, then automatically develop the holistic view. One particular event here, but that event happened because of this factor, that factor, that factor, that factor. That's the reality. And not only today's factor, but also yesterday, or previous year, last year, or previous century, or previous millennium, a millennium, like that. So all things, interrelated. I think that concept, now today's world, in global economy, that concept, very relevant. An environmental issue, very relevant. And our health also, good health, food, emotion, environment, and particularly the surrounding positive atmosphere, everything interrelated. So the health viewpoint also, this Patitsamuppāda concept. And I think in the politics also, I think international relations, I think every field, this concept, but this simple concept, is very relevant. Then, in Buddhist tradition, I think historically, Sriveda, historically, the Pali tradition, then eventually Sanskrit tradition, whether Buddha taught teaching in Sanskrit language or not, that's a different question. But Sanskrit, in any case, Sanskrit tradition is there. Like Nagarjuna, all those great masters, which name I mentioned before, all these masters, you see, wrote was the Buddhism in Sanskrit language. So, I think the real holder of Nalanda tradition, I usually call Nalanda tradition, which is mainly Sanskrit tradition. And the holder of that rich tradition, only Tibetan and Mongolian, so around, I think, 10 millions. Out of 6 billion human beings, only around 10 millions. And then perhaps, I think, at the present circumstances, I think we Tibetan, I think the best community who really have better knowledge about Nalanda tradition. I think now here in this country, also now you see more and more people now showing interest about the Dharma. It's logical, you see, your own tradition, your own, because of the pressure, because of the treasure. So now you have the responsibility to carry the responsibility to hold, to preserve, the Nalanda tradition. And I think authority, should be in the hands of Indian. Logically, this tradition developed in Nalanda, and through centuries, Indian masters, I think most brilliant Indians through generations, they hold, they preserve, they propagate. So the Nalanda tradition, not just religious tradition or Buddhist tradition, but including highly qualified Sanskrit, high standard.
Qualitative. It is a very qualitative learning of the Sanskrit language.
Some my friend in Varanasi, in Sarnath, Sanskrit scholar, they told me the standard of the Sanskrit, Nagarjuna's work, and also Shantadeva and Dharma Kirti, their standard of the Sanskrit, they say very high. So therefore, I choose the text, the one text wrote by Nagarjuna. So one South Indian, great scholar, great bhikshu, great and also great yogi.
A great yogi.
So in so-called Mahayana world, Nagarjuna considered as a second Buddha, right? Second Buddha, like that. Although the text, the initial here you see the 2 sections. One section about shunya, about emptiness. That part rather complicated and difficult. Then second part, about altruism. Not that much difficulties, very, very useful, very useful. Now I think at the beginning I may explain why we need religion. And that's a big question. I usually telling people, everybody, including animals, other sentient beings, all want happiness, do not want suffering, and all have every right to achieve that goal, happy state, to overcome suffering. Now, happiness or joyfulness and pains, right, suffering, there are two levels. One, mainly sensorial level, satisfaction, or comfort, happiness, and pain and suffering. That level, other animals, we human beings, same. And generally, the other sentient being, like animal, also have some capacity, how to manage their daily necessity, right? Food or these things. I think like some fish, 1,000 miles, 1,000 kilometers, they can go like that and fly. If it's a tiny fly, sometimes several kilometers, they fly like that. I think as far as physical level is concerned, I think we are a little bit weaker. Those animals, they are more ability to do for their survival. But on that level, we are same, sensorial level, happiness and unhappiness, suffering, pains, like that. Now another level, mental level. Now here, mental level experience of happiness and suffering is actually superior than sensorial level. Quite clear. Someone physically comfortable, every facility there, but meantime, mentally could be very unhappy person. That we noticed. So when mentally, at mental level, there's too much sort of stress, too much sort of trauma, right? Agitation. Then the physical, those things which provide us the comfort in physical level, that completely fail to help our mental problems. On the other hand, if mentally happy, confidence, and fresh, then physical difficulties easily can subdue. So therefore, the suffering on physical level and suffering on the mental level, between these two, the mental level is more superior, more important. Now, how to deal with problem in mental level? So you see, everybody knows the peace of mind is not a product of mission or something from outside. Peace of mind must develop by ourselves. So the problem, mental level, essentially come from human intelligence. Other animals, like pigs, or these animals, is so long, no immediate disturbances, and feed well, and they are quite peaceful. Remember that, very peaceful. Although they're going to kill within a short period, but they no bother, isn't it? But we, because of this intelligence, we have, I think, a lot of ability about visions, about the future. And also because of our intelligence, we have good memory about past, because the history, right? Past events. So today, things okay, but because of the memory of the past, some agitation. And similarly, because of your vision about next year, next decade, next century, a lot of thinking about that, so more worry, more concern, more stress. So these are, I think, mental level, the disturbances on we human being, because we have this marvelous extraordinary intelligence. So therefore, since the trouble in mental level come from intelligence, therefore the remedy or method must come from intelligence itself. Now, dealing with our intelligence itself is something like sharp instrument, effective instrument, sophisticated instrument. So that instrument, whether can utilize destructive way or constructive way, that is entirely depend on motivation. Intelligence, smart intelligence itself, you see, there's no guarantee that intelligence become more positive, no guarantee, like instrument. So the instrument, whether you utilize positive or negative, is the user, depend on the user. Similarly, our intelligence, whether become constructive or destructive, is depend on the motivation. So our sharp mind, smart mind, or intelligence, and positive emotion go together. Then our intelligence can be constructive, and as a result, intelligence bring more satisfaction, more happiness, more calmness. So now, among the emotion, I feel, and also I think as a result of discussion with some modern scientists, it seems there are, of course, there are a lot of different emotions, but it seems, we may categorize like this. One emotion, one category of emotion is spontaneous, although there are some reasons, but basically more spontaneous, such as anger, attachment, or these things. Then another emotion, through training of mind, through reason, through training, through that way, certain strong feeling develop. That kind of emotion usually positive. Now, for example, the warm-heartedness or sense of affection, By nature, we have that because we are, particularly we human beings, and other being whose basic nature more like social animal, then in that case, there must be some kind of emotion which bring together. That's attachment, affection. Affection bring together. For example, I think between mother and child, without mother's care, the child cannot survive. So for survival of the child, mother's care is highly essential. So there must be some emotion which brings together. So that's affection. Both sides, mother side as well as child side. And the other animals also there. So those animals, like butterfly or moth, and also turtle, the mother lay down the egg, lay down egg, then sometimes mother die. But like turtle, lay down the egg, then mother left, never met with their offspring. So the survival of offspring have to manage by themselves. So under that circumstances, I think by nature, if we put together the turtle, because offspring baby turtle and the mother, if we put together, I don't think they have the capacity to show affection. Because biologically, no need caring from mother. So no affection, I think. So far, so nobody tested that. Many occasions I expressed that. So now we, human beings, and all those mammals which is their survival depend on mother's milk. Now automatically, you see, there is one mental level, one element to bring together, that's affection. So compassion, that kind of compassion is actually very much mixed with attachment. So in certain level, attachment useful. And that comes by nature. Now that take as a seed, then further development, compassion. Now that kind of compassion by nature is biased only towards one's own close friend, not the rest of the other. And particularly towards enemy, impossible to develop that kind of affection. So that affection is biased. So sometimes that kind of affection can be destructive. Too much attachment, too much affection brings more anger, more hatred, like that. But if you take that the affection as a seed, then using our intelligence, including scientific findings, now we can promote, you see, that feeling of affection. Now through reason, through training, that same kind of closeness feeling can extend first the neutral people, neutral sentient beings, then furthermore towards enemy. As far as that action is concerned, your enemy. But as a sentient being is concerned, yes, still they are worthy. Is it to develop affection? Now that's through reasoning. So we can develop that. So that affection is unbiased affection or compassion. That compassion is always positive. So now you see, even affection, the same one category, but lower biased, spontaneous, higher through training, through reasoning, then that more powerful and unbiased. So even one category of same emotion, some level, spontaneous, biased, and that take as a basis or seed, and further training through reasoning, through meditation, then become unbiased, positive emotion. Okay. I think to some extent, anger also, spontaneous, so that destructive, but then through, once you see you have, powerful compassion, genuine sort of unbiased sort of compassion, sense of concern, then out of sense of concern, sometimes may, anger sometimes may helpful. Out of sense of concern, then express more harshly. So looks like anger. But essentially, they out of sense of concern. So even anger, there could be, two levels. I think the other animal, or those animals who have no intelligence, they cannot develop such things. But we human beings, since we have this marvelous sort of intelligence, so we can develop that. So now the question is, as I mentioned earlier, reason and training. Now the field of reason, now the different religions now working involve or come to play here, like those theistic religion. Now the concept of God, infinite love, God created us, so we are creature of God. So our own interest, if we follow God's wish, that is loving kindness and forgiveness, tolerance, these things. So that's some way of reasons through that way. So I think President Pope, His Holiness Pope, now emphasizing the faith and reason. So just faith looks something mystery. Unless it is combined with reasons, difficult to make relevant our day-to-day life. Now Buddhism, right from the beginning, just a reason. Faith, of course, there are, but faith comes later. First, the reason. For example, so when Buddha taught first sermon, he never mentioned about faith. He just mentioned Four Noble Truths: suffering and causes of suffering, then permanent happiness, a cessation of suffering, that is permanent happiness, and its cause. So Buddha simply, you see, taught the happiness we want, suffering we do not want. So in order to reduce suffering, we must tackle the causes of suffering. And in order to achieve happiness, we must tackle the causes of happiness. So according to law of causality. Law of causality is not Buddha's creation, right? Because of invention, right? Not Buddha's invention or creation. It's a nature. Law of causality. Causes, conditions, produce, develop some new fact. That new fact again act like causes and conditions, then another new fact. So something like evolution. So therefore, Buddhism, right from the beginning, just a reason, no faith. Then out of understanding of the reason, then through reasoning, then eventually some faith. Right? Buddha, of course, quite a diplomatic way. When someone asks whether there's God or not, he remains silent. But when he, you see, according to his teaching, Four Noble Truths, implication is just law of causality, no creator. So because of that, if we examine his teaching, seriously, then the implication is there: no God, no central authority, like that. So the non-theistic religion, then the approach is, yes, reason, based on our own experience. So, including animal, everyone appreciate others' affection. So you see, I feel today's our affection, warm-heartedness, I think comes on the experience of that moment. Mother, full affection and take care. We got maximum satisfaction from mother's affection. Right? I think that's some kind of deep imprint in our mind. So rest of our life, I think those children who received, I think, maximum affection from our mother at that time, and then certainly more longer period, I think child may become more warm-hearted person. At that time, separated from mother, and then eventually even abuse. I think very rare abuse from mother side, but abuse from father side. Isn't it? Male are more aggressive. So then the rest of their life become anger, suspicion, fear, like that. So I think the experience at that time, at that moment, I think is extremely important. So in any way, our commons are on the basis of our common experience and also scientific findings. Now it's quite clear. Now the affection, compassion is very important matter for happy life. More compassionate heart brings more self-confidence. That reduces fear, doubt. I think one of the worst factor for agitation, anger, stress, these are, I think, fear, deep inside fear. Fear there, then more stress. If not much fear, I think much easier. It's much easier. How to develop less fear, state of less fear is self-confidence. How to develop self-confidence? Affection. Smile. Treat each other as brothers, sisters. Then there's no room for fear. I think trust is very essential. How to develop trust? There is compassion, trust will come. More trust, less fear. More positive atmosphere. So now that's the religion now. I call that's the religion, right? So therefore, whether a person is religious minded or not, that kind of religion is very essential for our day-to-day life. So I think the rule of religion, not in temple, not in cathedral or these things, or ceremony is a part of that. A ritual is part of that. The real meaning of religion is compassion, warm-heartedness. Sometimes I describe compassion is a universal religion. So therefore, if you look all different religious traditions, all our major religious traditions, Of course, those small religion which worship sun or moon, these things, I don't know whether they have some certain concept. Right? I don't know. I don't think they have some kind of philosophy of these things. But then major tradition, Judaism, of course Hinduism, different Hinduism, and Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, all major religious traditions have the same message of love, compassion, with that, forgiveness, tolerance, and also contentment, and then self-discipline. So, all major religious traditions certainly have important role in today's world. Now, the different philosophies. As philosophy, the theistic religious philosophy or viewpoint and the non-theistic religious viewpoint is contradictory. That doesn't matter. Because some people feel much happier if you accept there is God, there is central authority, then feel much easier. Totally relying on that. And then some people, yes, self-creation is much better. So due to different mental disposition, you see these two way of approach is very essential. For example, within the Buddhism, now it will we'll touch now in this text. The Buddha taught a different philosophy, different viewpoint. For example, Chitta Mantra viewpoint, and the Madhyamika viewpoint, and the Sotantic viewpoint, Vaibhashik viewpoint, is a Buddha taught. It's a different philosophy to his own disciples. The philosophy itself contradictory. One philosophy say this is the ultimate reality. Another philosophy say no, this is not true. Another one is the ultimate reality. So contradictory. So therefore, the contradictory, different philosophy taught by one teacher, that means according mental disposition, right, among different mental disposition among his own sort of disciple. Now to some people, this kind of way of approach is more suitable, more effective, so you see accordingly he taught like that. So this, I think, take a lesson, right, to look other tradition. Yes, one tradition say God, absolute. Yes, wonderful. To some people, that's very useful, very helpful, so we must respect. So the effort or commitment, there's a promotion of religious harmony. I'm Buddhist. To my mind, concept of the creator and the creation is not reality. But I do respect, I do admire that kind of teaching. So, as a Buddhist, their philosophy, you personally disagree, but you do appreciate. Right? I do appreciate their contribution to millions of human beings through several centuries. So that's enough reason to respect, admire. So their contribution is immense. So we need that. As I mentioned earlier, the Buddha taught at first sermon Four Noble Truths. Then according Sanskrit tradition, Then the second teaching, right? Second Dharma wheel, second sermon. Then he taught about the ultimate reality, that's shunyata. So that actually further the explanation about third noble truth, the cessation. According to Theravada, according to Pali tradition, I think, of course I'm not very sure, I think according like Vasubandha's text, the Four Noble Truths is the key, the main subject, but there is no detailed, precise explanation how to develop the truth of cessation and what is the nature of truth of cessation. That available only in Sanskrit tradition, particularly like Dhammakirti work, and also Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti's work. You got the clear picture about the nature of cessation of suffering and how to develop that third noble truth. Then third wheel of Dharma, third kasati means sermon. That Buddha explained about the very nature of our main mind, clear, pure, from subject side. So that further explanation about third noble truth, path. Third, fourth. So first sermon, which is available both in Pali tradition, Sanskrit tradition, that's the foundation of Buddha Dharma. Then second sermon, the Sanskrit tradition or Mahayana tradition, so-called Mahayana tradition, is a further explanation about shunya, ultimate reality, that's related with true cessation. Then the third sermon about clarity of the mind, that's the nature of the path, the true path of fourth noble truth. Now this text, as Four Noble Truth, why Four Noble Truth comes? As I briefly mentioned already, law of causality. Laws, cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect. Our internal experience, pleasure, suffering, pain, also due to its own causes and conditions. External thing, matters, whole universe. These things also due to its own causes and conditions. And further go, Big Bang theory. Yes, its own causes and conditions. Without causes and condition, Big Bang, impossible to happen. So Big Bang, everybody now knows Big Bang took place. Why? There must be causes and conditions. So from the Buddhist viewpoint, not only just one Big Bang, but there must be several Big Bangs, like that. If scientists truly prove just only Big Bang, right? One Big Bang, you say happen. If proved, then we Buddhists have to think furthermore, right? But if you use common sense, why Big Bang happened? Big Bang happened, right? There must be tremendous sort of pressure. Otherwise, it won't take place. So that pressure, from where it comes? Unless God, up to God, or God created, then very simple. Otherwise, you have to explain its own causes, conditions. So like that, that's the Buddhist theory. Cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect. So that connected with the rebirth theory. Everything, that do the yin and yang war,
So here, from his perspective, everything that exists shouldn't necessarily come into being by virtue of the respective causes and conditions.
자, 근데 인도산에 그 주름도산에 녀링 거라 링제 주 컨시 데부테 모르 주종이직. 야, 주 컨시 모르 민주 모르 주게 매버체. 티 깨발을 팬다고 생각지.
And here, in terms of the cause, again, we have to understand that in two ways. There are two kinds of causes. One is technically we translate that as the substantial cause, the very cause, the transformation of which will eventually give rise to the result. So this is known as the substantial cause. And the other is the cooperative cause, the cause which simply supplements or which simply aids to the particular substantial cause in transforming into the result. So they are the two causes are substantial cause and the cooperative cause.
I think those people who involved in chemistry work, I think I think very, very, very clear. A certain sort of element actually is to transform the new form or a new compound. And some element simply is helping that. So now there are external things which we call semi-pembok.
The inanimate objects, external things.
Then semjik.
And then the animate objects.
So both momentarily changing. Of course, so we can obvious change. We can notice, right? Decaying external things or our own mind. Now the mental state, morning and evening, we can experience differences. So these are obvious changing. And external thing like flower, the previous week and today and next week changing. That's the grosser level of changing. Now this, because of the
evidently observed changes.
This change must take place on the basis of momentarily changing. You see, today's sort of change, now this significant obvious change will not take place unless things are momentarily changing. Invisible. Of course, macroscopic level, yes, momentarily changing, isn't it? In the atomic level, always changing. So
here, the observable change that we see around, that is in Buddhist, the Buddhist terminology, it is known as the gross impermanence, and whereas the momentary change, which forms the building blocks or the very basis for this the obvious change is technically known as the subtle impermanence.
So now, you see, the grosser level of change depend on one new factor. But subtle way, momentarily changing, no particular cause.
So as for the very evidently observable changes, it must come about by virtue of some external third conditions. Whereas in the case of the subtle impermanence, there is no external cause which gives rise to this particular subtle changes happening. Rather, it is by virtue of the very cause which gives rise to the result that it is the same cause which gives rise to the cessation of that phenomena.
지르자네 중가망가 먹어도 쓰면 타네 고 깨지게 지그려야 돼 중가망가 먹어도 쓰면 타네 용거를 마도 중가망가 먹어도 마소는 용통이 와.
So the subtle momentary changes that we see around that must necessarily be by virtue of the preceding cause. So without a preceding cause, something cannot undergo the momentary change.
Now I think you see the little challenge is to do the modern scientist sort of the concept, right? Of course, you see, everybody knows there is mind. But the question now, when people try to identify what's mind, then differences. Otherwise, you see, everybody now agree there's mind, there's feeling. Without mind, no feeling. Or cognitive, cognition, right? Dushi.
The element of cognition or the discrimination.
So now since I think last 3,000 years, I think around 3,000 years, in this country, already is investigation about self. So the conclusion, Atma. The Buddha, little critical view about that. So it's a Buddha taught anathema theory. And now the mind, the causes of the mind, whether there is a beginning or not. In this country, already you see there's some investigation. So mind, ta kyang member handa, charaka sarve, charvaka lada. Kyang member dum dum shevda, pena kyang le rimu kadoda kyang lo rimu kyang le temba nanshi shevadi pumbul temperes, luji pumbul temperes.
And the Charvaka, one of the non-Buddhist school, said
one of the ancient
non-Buddhist school, put it in a very easy way, saying that the mind is nothing but totally dependent on the physical body. So whenever the physical body ceases, the mind as well will cease. An example that they give is that the painting on the wall, whenever the wall is dismantled, then the painting as well will dismantle.
So
As such, the mind is nothing but the product of the physical body.
So modern science also, you see, carrying that kind of that kind of view. Mind is nothing but a product of brain. Right? So now this is the question. Now there already is some sort of what's the test. Through meditation, purely mental level meditation, is how much change, how much effect on brain. So quite significant research now. Like Wisconsin University now carries some project, I think at least the last few years. I also visited because of the Richard Kasa, David Richardson. He one of the he great scientist. He carried this kind of experiment. So according to some scientists, they like training of mind, mindfulness, the longer period of training of mind, actually the certain part of brain increasing. So the mental force or mental factor can affect on brain, right? Of course, you see, many of our experience, you see, due to some movement in brain or neuron, then certain feeling is developed. But some cases, you see, the purely mental level, some movement, that effect on brain. But still, you see, we need more investigation, more experiment. Now, still going on. So now, they, not only Buddhism, but also you see, many ancient, I think, they accept the Charvaka, the rest of Indian tradition, you see, accept rebirth theory. So the basis of the rebirth theory is the continuation of mind. Of course, you see, the sensorial level mind, like eye consciousness, ear consciousness, these things, so long these organs remain functioning, and also ultimately brain function, these the senses are functioning. Something damage organ or the brain, then no longer is a function, this mind. So these are the product of the body, no question. Then in dream, you see another level of consciousness. With dream, you see certain feeling, certain experience also there. And some individual in dream time, what kind of mind, but you see some kind of mind actually is separated from the body. The body is still alive, but some portion of the mind, I don't know, you see, go outside and then actually you see seeing what's happening. My you see, little critical view about modern scientific sort of explanation about mind. Now, so far, they have no experience distinction topotomy.
And also they cannot distinguish between the valid cognition and the invalid cognitions.
So in
fact, the valid cognition and invalid cognitions, these are something that we experience on a daily, on everyday lives.
And
explanation on the concept of the conceptual thoughts and the non-conceptual thoughts. Again, it is something that has been explored for the last thousands of years in India. It is because of this that there is a very commonly existing debate or argument between the Buddhist philosophers and the non-Buddhist philosophers as to whether or not the conceptual thoughts, the mode of apprehending the object is by virtue of selective mode or by virtue of the objective mode.
So these are, to us, I think at least last 2,000-3,000 years, you see, these are something or subject to investigate. But in modern science, now, that category still is not under the
modern science is still yet to really touch upon these topics.
So is it, I mean, as a Buddhist, particularly the follower of the Sanskrit tradition, you see, we have no hesitation to say no. The scientific finding is true. We can prove. So that's the reality. No problem to deny existence of such things. although some scriptures mention that, doesn't matter. It's the Buddha himself,
Because the Buddha himself said that you, the bhikshus and the wise men, just as this goldsmith testifies the purity of the gold by cutting, rubbing, and burning it, so too should you examine my words and then accept it, and don't accept it simply because you respect me. So this is the kind of suggestion or the opinions that I'm sharing with amongst thousands of Buddhist scholars in the monastic institutions.
Particularly according to the Nalanda tradition. Investigate. Investigation is so important. Through investigation, if the fact goes against Buddha's own word, then we have the liberty to reject Buddha's own word. The reality, fact is more important. So Buddha himself gives us some kind of liberty. Through your own investigation, if you find some contradiction with my teaching, then it doesn't matter. Leave it. It's my teaching. So that's, I think, the greatness of Nalanda tradition. So this is Nagarjuna. This author, I think, reject many Buddha's own word. So that's Indian brain. Indian brain. Oh, really, I think really wonderful. Really wonderful. Of course, the Four Noble Truths is Pali tradition as well as Sanskrit tradition is the basis of the Buddhism. Then on top of that, the further explanation about the law of causality, that the 12 link.
12 links of dependent origination.
That also is a common Sanskrit tradition, Pali tradition. That tension level that so tene pejumbu that the kasure tungamangama ten ruchimichimo yon there the tenji longjunda tenji lugdo digi tenji sad shame.
Here when it is talking about the 12 links of dependent origination in a sequential order and in the reverse order, so in both cases it is to do with the concept of dependent origination, dependent arising.
Now that I think quite understandable or rare. I think we can see that quite easily. Cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect. So there must be some element. The cause effect works well. Student review, fact water.
Now the question is, what could be the reason as for these the operation of the causality? Why these causes should be giving rise to the results?
Now, for example, the grosser level of change possible because of subtly, momentarily changing there. So that's the basis of the possibility of grosser level of change. Similarly, now cause and effect works. Why? Now the question is, the things, the nature is dependent. Remember, any devati, any one.
So here, the reason as to why this causality is operating or is happening is because in the nature there exists interdependency. Because the nature is made in such a way that things, they are correlated, they interdependent. They are interdependent on one another.
Now here, the interrelated or interdependent, now here means not only result depend on causes, but cause also. Why we call cause? Because of the result. Kurim zibe ina jugnyala che debu jeli ngorwa. Redita chedan debu jula tosle kurim chani shegdu wa. Ta judi ju imbadi debu tegwa. Ti kurim keje marwa. Ko rengshingi debu mena jul tashin marwa.
So here, it is not just the result which is dependent on the cause, but it is the cause as well which is dependent on the result. So when we speak about the result depending on the cause, we can think of in terms of the sequence. First, the cause arises, followed by the result. Whereas when we speak about the cause, in turn depending on the result, so it's not a matter of the sequence, because sequence-wise we cannot really account for that. Rather, it is without the presence of the result, we cannot possibly think about something as the cause.
So actually, the factor which, because of that factor, is the cause become cause, right? No. But at that time, the factor not yet come. Factor is
the factor upon which the cause depend on for it to become a cause is yet to emerge, is yet to come about. So it is this very particular thing which we describe as a cause is designated or is imputed as a cause because of the fact that the result is there, which is bound to come in the future. During the presence of the cause, there is no result. The result is yet to be produced. But the result is here the result, although it is yet to be produced, but the result is not to be denigrated. We cannot say that the result doesn't exist, because it does exist, although it does not exist at the time of the cause. So here, if you think carefully, then we see that the very basis of dependence, the very basis of reference, on the basis of which we speak of something as the cause, even if the result is yet to arise, but still we can think about something as a cause in relation to something which is yet to come. So here we could clearly see the nominal designation coming into play, the mere imputation coming into play, because there isn't this concrete result, which is the reference, which is the object of a relationship upon which we call something as the cause.
The debu jula rala vasadi nada chida misalo kyalang garela and the nangbe tumde nalo ne tumde shigalo ge debu jula rala vadi sami kyalang garo ine ju debu la tevare sa tadi umabe mada shegoma.
So here, as said earlier, there are two dependents happening. One, the result depending on the cause for its arisal, and the other, the cause depending back on the result. So here, the first one, the result coming into play or coming into being by virtue of the cause is something that everyone can accept so easily. So this is very obvious, but and also this is something that all the four different schools, Buddhist schools of thought, they accept equally. But whereas the result, whereas the cause, depending on the result, is something which we cannot accept and which is only accepted by the middle way school of Buddhist school of thought.
So that is 10 takwa sekeshigo.
So here,
10 중앙 상면 비치 10 takwa se.
so here, the cause, this phenomena, the cause depending on the result. So when we speak about that concept, then it comes into the idea of not only the mere origination, but also the idea of imputation should come into being.
So that 10 takwa ni yoga yidusane ko rangsabati yogumdo.
So here, when we realize that something comes into being by virtue of mere designation rather than absolute objective reality, so this clearly indicates that there is no objective independent existence.
Furthermore, within the Madhyamika, there are two schools of thought. One school of thought that most of the Madhyamika philosopher, you see, consider there must be objectively something. Mere pure designation cannot work. Tokda chigo shabayina minam gimida mimamalia tokda chigoda lochung.
Again here, and within this middle way school of Buddhist school of thought, one category believes in some extent of objective existence, some extent of existence from the object's side. So then, from their point of view, if something is purely subjective, purely imputed by thought, then in that case we can hardly differentiate between an actual human being and a mere
Dream.
and a person in a dream. You cannot really differentiate between these two.
Both same way, mental designation, right? Mere designation. But one, the reality, this human being, dream human being, not reality. So there's differences. How to make the distinction? So therefore, the many Madhyamika philosophers is to consider there must be the reality from the objective side. Now, if there is some reality from the objective, right? Objectivity, right?
No.
There, if that is independence, then there's no reason to depend on other. In that case, the law of causality won't work. The result, objectively, right? Objectivity, right?
If it exists objectively.
No, there is independent, exists by itself, then there is no room work by causes. No.
So here, whereas contrary to existing by mere imputation, if the result should exist from its own side, then this means that it has room for independence. The result should be existing independently. If the result exists independently, then it should not be dependent on its causes.
So now the Buddha Palita further clarification comes from Chandakirti. Now they say they kasoda alinge tegisidal debu julu tebasadi kodan jungjugi mari ju debu tebadi jungjug debu la samni tada ju negora debu tu yamariti ine jungju la samdani te ju senta te ju chaya jida te ju resin la te ju resadi ko samane sama indusane ko te ju cha dewa te ju chaya gi 대단 중서디 롭주리한다. 봐. 그 라면에 여러 이는 이 요구요래. 다시 다시 똑같이 땅성 쳐도 와. 자, 근데 인바 인도산에 쳐 탐절로 견지 뭐에 상당은 유지 뭐에 좀 때는 요 말이스. 탐절 또다리스. 어느 르강 소소를 했으면 르강 소소 말이스. 르강 소소 멤버티 견에 여러 집에 있는 르 따고때라 타니베 로셰지 미누베 고리 타니베 로셰지 미누베 타라 따든 산이 니베 루스샤바 마이메 고리 라 따든 산이 니베 루스샤바 이나 단점 주지 그게 너희 고리 근데 이르산에 마다 마제가 안에 다 샤고치레스 자 근데 이미 이르산에 밀럼입니다 미모만 예부티 이야와체야티 디 유지 뭐네 야와체도 말이스 디 타냐 도저기 로찌글라 잡된 사마 요래 타냐 로신이 미누버리 전업 주지 그 미누버리 밀럼금이 밀 즈바탈라 타냐 로신이 너무 디 예미치 차
And again, right from the beginning, I said that there is two ways of dependence. Not only the result depending on the cause, but the cause as well is dependent on the result. So here, when we say, when you point to some object and then say that, oh, this is a cause which will give rise to a particular such and such result in the future. So that result, on the basis of which we speak of something which we point to as a result, a cause. So although that result is yet to come, but still we can conceive of that object as a cause. So this clearly indicates that in order for, while designating something as a cause, we don't really need to have the concretely existing, objectively existing result there, because the result is yet to come. So this clearly indicates that there is no objective or independent existence, rather that the object becomes a cause by virtue of mental imputation. So another question is, but if things, they come into being by virtue of mere imputation or mere thought, then how can you really differentiate between the real human being and the human being in a dream? So then, again, if things are merely designated by thought or merely imagined, merely imputed, then again, is it not the case that you cannot really differentiate between these two persons, the real person and the dream person, the person in the dream? Then it says that, yes, we still can make the distinction, differentiate between these two. Because although these two equally share the nature of being mere imputation, but one can be rejected by a valid cognition, and the other cannot be rejected by a valid cognition. And for example, the real man cannot be rejected by any other valid cognition, whereas the man in a dream can be rejected by a valid cognition. And then also, the real man cannot be rejected by the valid cognition which analyzes the conventional realities and also which analyzes the ultimate. And whereas the other one, the man in a dream, it can surely be rejected by one of these two valid cognitions. The valid cognition analyzing the conventional natures, and the other analyzing the ultimate.
So now that is the according, usually we call Prasangika, right? Prasangika Madhyamika. One kind of Sotantic Madhyamika. Now two differences. Today you understand that Prasangika ge Tungni sen su understand Tenjung ge Tekonani Islam na Sashurisha. Tombani Siktiko Mebiche. Tenjung ge Tekonani. Tenjung ge Tombani.
So this middle way school has further two divisions. One Prasangika and the other Swatantrika Madhyamika. And here the Prasangika, obviously, the philosophy of the Prasangika is the ultimate. And then from the point of view of the Prasangika, the ultimate nature, the ultimate truth, according to Prasangika, could rightly be put in ways of emptiness on the basis of dependent origination.
You see, this is a subtle differences become clear when we make a comparison. The Vavabek explanation or Vavabek's commentary about Mula Madhika, because of Mula Madhyamika, and Chandakirti's the commentary of Mula Madhyamika. These two texts, when we make sort of comparative study, then this becomes clear. So this is subtle differences, and not easy. Now here the Changju Jisem says to us, Changju Jisem says that Dindegi Chuni Tombani Ding Neva Lotala, Changju Simsigo, Jitan. The Changju Sim, already. Tangela, Tungni Neva Lotala, Changju Jisem, that they are the Changju Sim said that Changju Jisem said that they are Tuni Dog Lotte, Changju Sim Jisimba. And then this is even to that. Tuni Musu, Tuni Dog Lotte Comni, Tuni Musu Dog, law. Ten Changju Sim Jisimba, the digital Changju Sim Sia. That delay and Nansegi, any Donga Tumu want to cheve Changju Jisem. Judici Tumu want to cheve Changju Jisem. Lami, Gezo, Tumu cheve, Tumu want to cheve Changju Jisem. Zorin Kwana want to cheve Changju Jisem. Tell and Nansegi, Madame Shan. That under the Hedge Lami, Tumu want to cheve Changju Jisem, Toshut, Danu Changju Jisem, Toshut, Ti want to change Sumbia. Didn't shake you.
Here, if you look at the text, the title of the text is A Commentary on the Awakening Mind or Bodhicitta. Now the question is, what does it mean by Bodhicitta or the awakening mind? It has different interpretations. Firstly, we have to know that this very understanding of the ultimate nature, emptiness, when this mind, if you habituate in this understanding of emptiness, then gradually your understanding of the ultimate reality becomes non-conceptual, or in other words, it becomes a non-dualistic, non-conceptual experience of emptiness. So, and then this very qualitative state of the understanding of emptiness, when that is associated, when that is complemented by the bodhicitta, by the desire to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, then that particular mind, understanding emptiness, which is complemented by that kind of bodhicitta, is referred to as the awakening mind here, or the bodhicitta. And then again, this bodhicitta, the reference of this particular word, the awakening mind here, the title of this book, this text, sorry, it has again different levels. One which is in common between the Tantra and Sutra, and the other which is common among the four different tantric schools. And still another would be the one which is exclusively explained in the highest Yoga Tantra. And still further, still another would be the one which is explicitly stated in the completion stage of the highest Yoga Tantra. And the awakened mind, which is mentioned here, is the one explained according to one which is explained exclusively from the completion stage of the highest Yoga Tantra.
다 창조 semgi 나들 좀 말해. 이렇게 하게도 보디지트 리버라나 나마. 다한테 창조 sem스데 다한테 편다 디 땡겐기 식 아다 상드베 저주나 다 예데베 식치. 상드베 저주 루니베나 예데베 식치. 다 식디기 저중이 사실.
Here, the title of the text is a commentary on the awakening mind. In Sanskrit, is Bodhicitta Vivarana Nama. So what is being said here is that, in fact, there's a particular verse or a particular stanza in the second chapter of Guhya Samaj Tantra. So then this whole text is going to be a commentary or explanation on a particular stanza taken out from the second chapter of Guhya Samaj Tantra.
다디 저주 식디 뭐 탐자 당로 풍부함도 계시도 수능서 만나면 뭐 철을 담미냐면 라서 선에 맞이 동원이 이런 신호사라 디디 저주 식디.
And the verse or the stanza which is taken out from the second chapter of Guhya Samaj Tantra is what is cited here in the opening passage, which says, "It has been stated, devoid of all substantive entities, utterly discarding all objects and subjects, such as the aggregates, elements, and sense fields, due to sameness of selflessness of all phenomena, one's mind is primordially unborn. It is the nature of emptiness."
다 디기 뭐 탐자 당자와 사디 다 샤이는 사네. 다 강도 자야서는 풍부도 자야라 봐. 저자가 풍부응어부 당 자와 그래도 풍부응어불래 된 셴도 슬러. 풍부응어부 탐자다 자와디 풍부응어불래 된 셴베 다 요마.
The first line which says, "devoid of all substantive entities." Here, it refers to the self. The self, although that is connected with the aggregates, however, this line says that we are not to think about this self as something distinct from the aggregates. It should be thought of in terms of being devoid of the aggregates in the context of not totally separated. The self should not be thought of as a separate or distinct entity from the aggregates.
Now here the real differences between Buddhism and non-Buddhism. I think up to now, I think the main demarcation between Buddhism and non-Buddhism, I think this is the point. This is the point. Of course, everybody is to feel there is I. Certainly, there's I. The I as an owner. Then this body and mind is the
object of utility.
So it is logical, my body, my mind. So there must be I. And then furthermore, I think our common experience, when we saw something, and actually, you see, our eye saw, but we usually felt I saw through my eye. So there's I, there's self. So in order to save, you see, that self, we have no hesitation to carry surgery, cutting our hand, leg, or if necessary, transplant, including our heart, isn't it? So nobody feel heart is self. So if that is the case, then cannot transplant, right? But so far, brain, so far, no transplantation of brain. I don't know, in the future, maybe possible, I don't know. So you see, there is I, there is self. It is true. Then furthermore, I think more important is that those traditions believe rebirth. So from previous life to this life, from this life to next life, obviously not this body and mind which connected with this body, not. So there must be I, self. So the concept of Atma, something separable from this body, independent from this body, and a body at a young age, or old age, like that, or because of the sick body, healthy body, so differences, changing. And mind also changing. But I never changing. So we can say, when I was young. So young means body, but the same I. So that's the reason or because of the basis, the concept of independent self. We can identify separately from this body. Now, Buddhism, Buddha reject that. There is no such independent I. I is mere designation on the combination of body and mind. So therefore, our common sort of expression, my body ill. Because of that, I ill. Right. Body young, I'm young. Body become old, I'm old. If body and mind, body and I is separate, then we cannot express that way. Right. So clearly, mind or I is designation on the combination of body and mind. So, concept of anatma, selfless, does not mean denying existence of self. But self is there, not such separate.
Distinct. The self is not being denied. The self does exist, but it does not exist as a distinct entity from the aggregates, the body and the mind.
Now, within the Buddhism, self, independent self, does not exist. But self must find from object side. Object side. So that means from within the body there must be self. So the Chitta Mantra or the Vibhashek, some school of thought of Vibhashek consider the Phungbu Gyun, Phungbu Gyun dying.
Some section of the Vibhashika school of thought, they believe that the continuation of all five aggregates are the selves.
Passion doesn't make that.
And whereas the next school, which is Sutrantika school, Sutrantika believes that the mind is the self.
And
similar is the case, or the belief, the position of the Swatantrika Madhyamika
다양 이지 남시 강사 생실 샤베 이나 이지 남시 돈이 무슨도 또베 로이 모를 줄에 내가라 아니 강사 뒤 뒤기 라가 박자 부시 샤베 말이지 말로 that's the good
So then,
텐주스입니다. 양 초직네 이지 남시디 다 이지 생시 그래서 생시 남시디 다른 샤베이나 강사로 샤베이나 파베 냠샤고 디 다다 뉴무 마고 파베 냠샤 디 줄 뉴무 줄 된리가레스 봐 뉴무 파샤 뉴무 요고 거레스 사미 샤베디 뉴무 된직 마레스 이지 샤베디 강사로 샤베요 봐 디 냠샤이를 가레스 사미를 가레스 에네 강사 과샤오 있다 서로 코아베 강사 과샤스나
so
근데
then,
인도 디경보는 근신남을 셔봐서도 로스시샤 그래서 근데 견지 통네 샤야 견먹고 시게요 견먹고 시에네 에네 강사가 생실라 근시지남시 사셔
then if somebody believes or if somebody comes up with the belief that the self is nothing but this particular, very particular mind, then there is an argument coming up from other schools saying that a particular practitioner, when he or she is fully immersed into direct non-conceptual experience of emptiness, so there the mind, that particular mind which is focused on emptiness not dualistically, that is uncontaminated. So if that is the case, the person is still endowed with all the imprints of defilements. And this particular uncontaminated mind cannot be the basis, cannot be the repository of all these negative imprints. Now the question is, if the mind is the person or the self, then since that on one hand we say that this person is with negative imprints, and then on the other hand we say that this very person, the ultimate person, which is the mind, since it is uncontaminated, it is not the proper basis for the negative imprints. So now how can you reconcile these two ideas? So this is the qualm raised. And then on the basis of that, then one of the schools which came up with this issue says that as such, this particular mind cannot be the self. Rather, they come up with another position which says that there's a separate mind called Alaya Vigyan, or the repository, the basis of all. So they come up with this idea, a separate mind called Alaya Vigyan. And that is to be posited as the self and not the regular mind.
자상가 아다 근신남시디 그린 루모된 말이 루모된 시대가로다 자상가 강사 그런 파괴 냠샤 20 디기 규기 일루디 돈이 무슨 것도 로차되어디 근신남시디 루모된 시니 강사들이 있다.
So then according to this particular school, which is Chittamatra or the mindfulness school, they come up with the idea of the Alaya Vigyan, a separate mind, as the very example, illustration of the self. Then how can they reconcile, or how can they really come up with the answer to this qualm? So they say that although the person is fully immersed on emptiness, non-dualistically, so there, this particular mind is observed into emptiness, but there's a separate mind which is Alaya Vigyan, which can be pointed to as the self. So as such, there is no contradiction, because this Alaya Vigyan can be the basis, can be the repository for all the negative imprints, while the non-dualistic experience of emptiness, that particular wisdom, that is fully immersed into emptiness, and this is uncontaminated.
다 대참절로 유증원의 강사 유증 쇼카도 가이네 유증원의 중국의 드리는 강사 써야 돼. 풍부한 나는 외국의 선. 다 여러 시샤체체 샤베인도 다 우주점 풍부한 나는 다시 샤야 된 거예요. 다 되게 넓게 최 담제 떡에 땅섬 샤인도 산에 풍부를 때는 딱상 그 다요래 풍부선을 다요 말했어 유지문에 두요 말했어 지리는 영수도 말해
However, all these schools, they are trying to point to some part of the aggregates, some parts of the self as the person or as the self. It is because that they all unanimously believe that there is some degree of objectivity, there is some degree of objective existence. They believe that, if something exists, it must exist from its own side. So when that is believed, then they are being forced to point to something existing there objectively, something among the parts of the self or the person as the self and the person. And whereas according to Prasangika, according to the highest Buddhist school of thought, since things can come about by virtue of mere imputation as contrary to objective existence, so they can say that, or even if none of the parts can be pointed to as the self, but still we can validly establish the self. We can validly come up with the idea of a self. The self does exist, although may not necessarily be pointable among one of the parts.
That's about the meaning of anattama, selflessness. Even within the Buddhist school of thought, you see, there is a variety about that concept. Ta kama nipa digi, ene ta rangde shengo, rangde kama nipa de menchane rangde, rangde ndaba ka yungu yares lama, rangde wongmen ndaba ka yungu yares. Ta pungbu kamda jishi sungdan zima nam bang ba sa digi, ene pungam jishi 다 지나모도 너데베니레 이 간사가 담이 라고지 샤바 마도 그다 간사 라제 투비 자유지 동에 간사 담이 샤바 마도 취지 담이 생매 자 다체디 그 전직문에 주보다 아자장디 가 가서를 그게 샹의 때문에 라왕 두대버지 샤유르자네 치륜샤샤나 유제 참이 사베 지도 다가는 신기 셰바 차샤나 계지 참이 샤니 데르르비 계지 참이 그 균기 셰바 다디 요마레 송요 치 송어이네다 낭즈바이네다 참이 자원이 형식 말이스 차제레스
The second and the third lines, utterly discarding all objects and subjects, such as the aggregates, elements, and sense fields. These two lines rejects the position of Vibhashka and Sutrantika, because according to these two schools, the concept of selflessness, according to these two schools, is only in the context of the selflessness of phenomena, and not the selflessness of the selflessness of person, and not the selflessness of phenomena. They only speak about the selflessness of person. And then as for phenomena, which means all other things other than the self, they believe that not only do these things exist so independently and objectively, but they believe that the very basis, the very building blocks of these phenomena, like in terms of external inanimate objects, they believe that they are finally composed of partless particles. And whereas for the mind, they believe that the mind is composed of the partless moments of consciousness, partless moments of minds. So they believe that. And then these two ideas are being rejected by these two, the second and the third line, saying that there's nothing which exists as partless. There's nothing which exists as partless moments or partless particles.
Then di shamdi chorama ba nyamni be ransu chorama ba nyamni be sa digi nyamni be ransu sona ma ge ba sa digi 띠거기요. 섬섬가. 섬섬에 갈 수 없으나 소 가서 그게 참이 싸고 연구 말했어. 봐. 그 차제레스. 사바 차드 제베디 바바바 짜는 있는 그 아니 가서 그게 뒤처럼 걸어 날 차도 그랬어. 간다 초지 참매배 뒤처럼 연구 말했어. 자, 이제 참이 싸는 요 말했어. 근데 이제 결혼한 건 내가 너시 참이 싸고 지든 요 말 지든가 난 셔바 된주셔요. 근데 이제 때 최로 담에 냠니베 라서 선에 맞게 봤어. 치다 나는 최 삼월로 담버 주에 동아리 선대 담버 주에 동아리 전에서 삼삼에 치든 매 소 치든 매 짐버 담버 주에 인사 다데까.
And then on the next two lines, due to sameness of selflessness of all phenomena, one's mind is primordially unborn. These two lines reject the position of mind-only school. The mind-only school says that there is no external phenomena. Everything is mere extension of one's own mind. So how do they prove this? Is that should there be any external reality, then it must be composed of partless particles. So then they reject it through logic, through reasoning, that there doesn't exist any partless particles. So as such, they say that there's no external reality, there's no external phenomena existing. And what truly exists is only the mind. So they say that everything is mere extension of one's own mind. And then they hold so strongly onto the independently existing mind. And then again, these two lines reject this position by saying that just as the external phenomena, they don't truly exist, the internal mind as well does not exist independently or does not exist truly.
다 최 탐제 자다와 되게 간다 저거디 시준 요말에 신이 셔버 디기 다 간다 어나 치료 수소지 가르쳤나 나심지 낭차삼레 근데 이르잖아 가서 우리 저거 숭진이 기도는 책임이 있어 삼삼에 다 되네 오마베 다 오마베 나가 숭진이도 숭해제 요래 야 숭진이도 매버체체다 치료 요래데 이네 치료 던져줘 요 말했어 봤다 다 치료 던져 서로다 가다 치료 때문에 못 버리겠어 다 뒤치다면 숭요래 지디한다 풍복함다 계시 숭는 좀 남방바 세야 디기 말해 따지리 디가다 셈잠베 풍금 계시 지라마에 전전이 내가 신기 치준디 요마레스 바 까베 슈까 그래서 까베 고아데 가르스는 숭진이 있다는 동니셔 최단이셔 다디네 최다메 냠니베스야 디기 셈잠베 소치르토도 모두 짐버된루인 세대하게 짐버된루데 까베 숭진니가로 담버 모두베 최단이셔.
So here again, going back to the mind-only school's position, they rejected the existence of external phenomena. So they say that everything is mere extension of one's own mind. There is no external reality. So on the basis of that, they propose the idea of not only the selflessness of person, but they also come up with the idea of the selflessness of phenomena. They say that even these external phenomena, they don't truly exist the way they appear. So this kind of the concept of selflessness of phenomena is what is technically known as the selflessness of phenomena on the basis of the absence of duality. There's no dualism. And then, as said earlier, the fourth and fifth line, which says, Due to sameness of selflessness of all phenomena, one's mind is primordially unborn. These two lines reject this very position held by the Chitmatras or the Madhurya school. So how that's rejected is that although you speak about the absence of external reality, but you hold so strongly the presence of this mind. The mind is so independently existing. And then it says that just as the external phenomena do not exist objectively or independently, the mind as well does not exist independently. So it says, due to sameness of selflessness of all phenomena, one's mind is primordially unborn. It is in the nature of emptiness.